Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone. This is a brief overview of a couple of the master's programs in the Faculty of Health Sciences, the Masters of Science and the Masters of Nursing. And I'm going to start with a brief overview of the Masters of Science. And then, again, this is for prospective students, is to give you an idea of why you might want to do a Masters of Science in Health Science. And if you are interested in it, what the nature of the program is, what you're actually getting trained to do, what sort of skills you would have coming out of that. So this program has actually been around a fair time now. We started in 2004. Now, the original purpose of it was to create graduate level opportunities for healthcare professionals in the local area. So this was mostly people working in the local hospital and Alberta Health who were often in administrative positions, wanted that graduate level credentialing. But it also included people who had aspirations to go on to become university or college teachers and needed that sort of research-based program that we offer here. It was also, we have an addiction counseling program in the Faculty of Health Sciences, and a lot of those undergraduates were seeking graduate opportunities. So the issue was creating a generic enough program that would fit all of those needs and other needs. So there's three current majors in the MSc program: addiction counseling, nursing, or health sciences. And you can choose any of those three. We may expand them in the future because since this program was set up in 2004, we've added several other programs. We have a program in public health now, we have a program in therapeutic recreation, and we have a program in Aboriginal health. So we may well expand the majors that people can choose to focus on. So why would you want to do a Master's of Science currently in the Faculty of Health Sciences? Well, it's for anyone who wants graduate level research training. I want to emphasize that what distinguishes this program from the MN or we have another program, the MEd in counseling with addictions stream in the Faculty of Education. But what distinguishes this program is it tends to be more research oriented. It needs to be generic enough that it can be of interest and value to people from a whole bunch of different disciplines. So it makes it very difficult to be very content specific. So it's very appropriate for people who wish to get graduate level research training. It's very appropriate for people who may wish to pursue a PhD in a health related discipline. And it's very appropriate for people who aspire to be health science researchers. So to make that distinction again, students seeking a more clinically oriented degree would be better off in the health science Masters of Nursing program that Monique's going to talk about, or the Faculty of Education Master of Counseling program. Both of those were partly created because we realized that there wasn't enough of a clinical focus to our existing Masters of Science program, and a lot of our students still had more clinical aspirations as opposed to research aspirations. So the structure of the program is pretty simple, and it's been this way for many years. We're going to probably tweak that in the next year or two. But there's 4 required courses in the first year: research methods, philosophy of inquiry, advanced statistics, and advanced qualitative methodology. Now, we pride ourselves in the fact that we really emphasize mixed methods approaches. We're not predominantly quantitative, we're not predominantly qualitative, but both of these are useful and valued and important skill sets to investigate healthcare issues. And so you get the best of both. So it's a very well-rounded program in terms of the research skills you will develop. A thesis is required. Now, not all master's programs these days have a thesis, but we do have a thesis. And this is the focus of your job in the second year. The thesis topic and the discipline of the thesis supervisor are the primary things that determine whether your major is in health science or it's nursing or it's addiction counseling. If you have a topic that is generic to health science more generally, it's very appropriate to choose a major in health sciences. If it's more focused on addictions, then your major would be addictions. Normally you would have a supervisor in that same area, but it's not absolutely essential. The thesis format, I mean, this is sort of getting ahead of the game in terms of details you may need to know, but you can certainly use the traditional thesis format, which is often a 70 to 180 page thesis that comprehensively has a background section on your topic and then an exhaustive elucidation of the methods used and your conclusions. The problem with that is it's not very practical, that you can't get those things published because they're too lengthy. You need more of a distillation of those ideas. And so increasingly, and we allow it in this program now as well, you can turn that into something that's going to be a lot more useful for you, especially if you aspire to be researchers or academics, and that is a publishable paper or two. Something that would both constitute a thesis and something that you can actually submit for publication. Now, it doesn't have to be published in order to graduate, but it has to be, in the opinion of a committee, publishable. But in many cases, you'll both get a thesis and a publication, which really jumpstarts your career if you have research or academic orientation. So the MSc committee will accept both. I would actually strongly recommend the latter rather than the former, but we do accept both. We currently have about 25 students in the program, and traditionally we've accepted between 4 and 10 students a year. Most students fall into one of the following groups. We have had traditionally a lot of undergraduates who have graduated from the University of Lethbridge, most commonly in addiction counseling or nursing, but increasingly public health, as well as psychology, sociology, and a few of the other allied disciplines. As I mentioned before, we still have a smattering of Southern Alberta healthcare employees who are wishing that advanced graduate credential, foreign students, and also Canadian students from across the country who are interested in our fairly unique programs. That we do have some programs that are not that common across Canada, Aboriginal health being one. Complementary medicine, we have a research chair in complementary medicine. Addiction counseling is a fairly unique baccalaureate program. And therapeutic recreation. There are other programs elsewhere, but increasingly we're getting people interested in doing a graduate degree focused in one of those relatively more unique and uncommon areas. We only have one application date. Because the number of students is not that high, 4 to 5 typically, we want to try to create a bit of a cohort effect. So everyone's starting at the same time, getting to know each other, and it facilitates learning from each other as well. So you have to apply for February 1st for a September start date, then the entire student cohort starts in September, takes those 4 courses, then moves on to the thesis in the second year. In terms of what sort of credentials we're looking for, undergraduate degree in health science. But again, that can comprise a lot of different things, and we've had people in non-health science related disciplines who have taken additional health science related courses to create enough of a background that we would accept the person. It's a minimum GPA of 3.0. That's minimum. That doesn't necessarily mean that is adequate, but it's the minimum you need to apply. And the second thing is you need one of the health science faculty agree to supervise you. That we have 18 faculty members. One of the mistakes I see students making is you'll have some ideas of your own, which are quite legitimate and maybe of value and interest, but a faculty member, when a faculty member agrees to supervise someone, there's some self-interest there as well. faculty members often aren't going to supervise an idea and a student that's totally outside their area of interest and often their area of expertise. A faculty member is trying to advance their own career, and so there usually needs to be some sort of intersection between what the student's interest is and the faculty member's interest is. So when I take students, I have a list of about 50 different topics I identify, and I tell students, you can choose any of those 50, but it has to be on this list. And that's how you should think about it. Don't get focused on a particular idea that you have, because we only have 18 faculty members, and the range of areas we work in is relatively circumscribed. You might be able to convince a faculty member that this is a particularly interesting idea, but again, the faculty member has to have expertise in that area as well to want to and be able to supervise. So what I would suggest is you look at the profile and the CV, if it's available, of prospective faculty members and see which ones have research areas similar to your own, and then potentially meet with the supervisor and see if you can come to a meeting of minds about an area that you're both interested in. Yeah. English fluency and 3 letters of reference, and those have to be academic letters of reference. Funding. The MSc Program Committee awards the following from its monetary allocation from graduate studies. $7,000 for a graduate assistantship, and that usually entails you being a tutorial assistant or a marker for some course in the Faculty of Health Sciences. Tuition award, up to $6,000 if you're a domestic student, up to $13,000 if you're an international student. That's because the international student fees are higher. And if you're really a stellar candidate, the dean can also offer a $10,000 scholarship. So this last year we had most of our students get full funding. And in the grand scheme of things, that's a well-funded graduate student. We compete very well compared to graduate programs across Canada. So it's potentially up to $23,000 for domestic students, $30,000 for international students. So, I mean, a lot of programs, a lot of graduate programs you go to, you're not going to get any funding. You pay out of your own pocket. The better programs, you get funded, and we fund good students. So it's to cover your expenses so that you're not having to work part-time. There's actually restrictions on your ability to work full-time if you enter a master's program. But this would allow you not to have to work to pay the bills. So that's all I had. Any questions about the MSc program, what we do, why we do it, or how to get in, or anything else? Yeah.
So you said that you have to have a related undergrad degree. Can you apply when you're in your like if you're graduating, can you apply when you're in that last year if you're expected to have it, or you have to have been graduated and then you have to apply by February the next year?
So the question was whether you have to be already graduated to apply, and the answer is no. That if you're in the 4th year of an undergraduate program in a health-related discipline, it's expected that you'll be applying in advance of your finishing your degree. Now, sometimes, usually, acceptance is conditional on you having graduated and having maintained that GPA. But yeah, it's very, I'd say, a good portion of our students applying in their 4th year before they've actually graduated. Yeah.
I'm in a Bachelor of Nursing after degree, and we don't finish till the end of next summer. So can we still apply in February, or do we have to wait for the following year?
Medic will answer that question when it comes. The general principle, though, is that you need to have graduated by the time September 1st rolls around to start a new program. So I think theoretically it should be possible. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
My slides are attached to yours. So good afternoon. My name is Dr. Monique Sedgwick. I'm the chair of the Master of Nursing program, and I'm here to talk to you about our new Master of Nursing program that we've just launched recently. Unlike the Master of Sciences, we're really babies. We just started last year. The proposal was submitted to the government for approval in 2011 after a number of years of work by the committee, and we received government approval in 2014, and our first group of students started last September. So our second group of students just started in September. So that's really very exciting. Now, how this program came about, it was a request by registered nurses in the Southern Health Zone. While the MSc is very research focused, many of the RNs here in this zone felt that they weren't particularly interested in pursuing a thesis. However, they recognized that they wanted to have a master's degree, and they wanted something that they felt was very applicable to their area of practice. And so it really came out of the request of RNs working in this particular zone. So that's how this program came about. The other rationale was the increased shortage of nursing personnel at the graduate level in southern Alberta. And as I've said, the nurses' preference to have advanced education in the nursing discipline rather than in a health science discipline. So they really get to look at their focus, their practice area, their substantive area of interest. So the purpose of the program is to prepare graduates at the master's level to advance the profession, to be able to engage in professional roles in multiple domains, in leadership roles. So that's what we're really here for. We're not thinking that our graduates will continue to necessarily work only as a staff nurse, but probably looking at roles like clinical nurse specialists, perhaps managers, educators, policymakers, all kinds of different kinds of leaders. And so that's what we're aiming to have students end with their program. It's a unique program of delivery. Now, we recognize that many of our students work. They are practicing in some sort of setting. And so for that reason, having them come to us here at the university on a weekly basis, maybe throughout the week, didn't seem to meet the learning needs of the group of people that were attracted to this particular program. And so what we've decided to offer is what's called an enriched virtual model using blended learning approach. Basically what that means is that you study online about 80% of the time, with 20% of the time coming here face-to-face meeting with your colleagues and with the professors. So those 2 times that you come during the term is at the beginning of the term so that we can have an orientation and meet you and provide you with the information. And then about 3/4 of the way through the term, you come again. And during that time period, usually what we're doing is you're engaging in some sort of activity that is meant to deepen your learning of the content area of that particular course that you're registered in. Oftentimes, you're leading discussions. There are assignments attached to coming to that second face-to-face. So that's unlike any other program in Alberta. Athabasca University is fully online, and of course other programs, they have face-to-face. So we've approached this very differently, and the feedback that we've received from the first cohort is that they really like this kind of blended learning because the online portion is what's called asynchronous. You're not attached to a particular time to join in with your colleagues in discussion, but rather you do it at your own pace within a certain time period. And so if you're working nights, you can post at 2 o'clock in the morning if it's quiet. If you're just getting up and you're in your PJs and having your cup of coffee at your kitchen table, that works too, because we don't see that kind of stuff. So really, it's very flexible in that kind of, for this delivery. We have 2 kinds of students, full-time and part-time. Unlike the MSc, where the students are full-time, we do have full-time, part-time. To complete this program, full-time would take you 2 years, part-time would take you 4 years. You also have the opportunity to declare either a project or a thesis. So unlike the MSc, where you have to complete a thesis, here you could choose to do a project should you wish. Again, this was in response to the demand by the registered nurses in this area. You choose. The difference between the two of them, a thesis, you produce new knowledge. It is research-based. You're going to be conducting a research project with a research question and doing all of the steps of the research process. While the project, what the intent is that you would develop a tangible outcome, product, that might be used in a clinical setting. So for example, my clinical background deals with labor and delivery and postpartum, so this is my example. Let's say that you were working in public health and there was a rash of women who had multiples and they were wanting to breastfeed, but there didn't exist any resources available. That could possibly be a project for you to develop resources. It's all evidenced in form, so you have to go to the literature. And there is a proposal development and what we call a colloquium related to the project, but it is not a thesis. Okay, but you get to choose which one you want to, and you do not have to declare that at the point of application. It's a little later on in your program where you declare which route you want to take. But you have to declare if you're full-time or part-time when you apply for the program.
And then you can choose either one in the program. Like, so say you do full-time, you can choose either project or thesis, and then part-time, you choose either project or thesis.
So the question was, can you have a combination of part-time, full-time project thesis? Absolutely. You can be a full-time student who wants to do a project, or a full-time student wanting to do a thesis, or you can be a part-time student wanting to do a project or a thesis. Absolutely. So lots of flexibility. Our current students, we currently have 14 students in the program. 6 are full-time and 8 are part-time. This isn't particularly surprising for us. Again, when we did the survey of what RNs wanted, most of them said that they were working full-time and would be able to study only part-time. So now we see that where we have most of our students being part-time. Most of them come from the Lethbridge, Calgary, and Edmonton area. They practice in a variety of practice settings, from community to institutions. Most of them have 3 to over 30 years of practice experience. Now, having said that, I'm going to go back to your question about what if I am a current student finishing an undergraduate degree, can I apply directly into the Master of Nursing program? You certainly can. You don't have to have a certain number of years of experience. Historically, to do a Master's of Nursing, you needed between 3 and 5 years of practice experience. That's not the case anymore. So you would be able to apply for the September intake. Most of our graduates are from the U of L with the BN program. The BNAD program, we don't have any applicants yet coming out of the BNAD program. Hopefully that'll come in the next cohort, I'm hoping. This is recruitment, right? Application. The deadline is February 1st. Like the MSc, you have to have a minimum of a 3.0 GPA. Now, keep in mind, this is a competitive program, so 3.0 is minimum. The higher, probably the better for you. The other caveat is that you must be a registered nurse in a Canadian jurisdiction. So for those of you who are current undergraduate students, you have to have written the NCLEX exam and passed it and can prove that you are registered with a Canadian jurisdiction before you are granted a seat in the program. Okay? So that needs to happen sometime in August. I forget which date we selected in August, recognizing that some of you might be writing the NCLEX in June, July, those sorts of things. You have to have 3 letters of reference. Of course, those are academic references. And you must meet the English language proficiency. Funding. Like the MSc, there are all kinds of funding opportunities for students, graduate assistantships, scholarships, and awards, research assistantships with faculty members, and government student loans. There's funding available for both part-time and full-time students. However, your job will be, if you are part-time, to meet up with the people who have all of that information about what funding you qualify for, because there are certain qualifications for applying for full-time or part-time funding. Any questions? Yes?
You can apply while you're in your undergrad,
Mhm.
and then you must graduate, write your NCLEX, get registered, and then you're conditionally accepted until you've done that.
That's right. That's right. So you have to finish your program, you have to write your NCLEX, pass the NCLEX, and get registered with a Canadian jurisdiction. So if you are in Alberta, that would be CARNA. If you're in BC, with that Canadian jurisdiction, Saskatchewan, that Canadian jurisdiction. Yes?
Even though we no longer require practice experience to enter the Masters of Nursing program, would you still recommend it?
So the question is, would I recommend experience, clinical practice experience before starting the MN? That's a really difficult question. I think probably what I would encourage, if you are a current student and thinking about an MM program right out of your undergraduate program, is that you work either part-time or casually, at least while you are in the MM program. That way you do accumulate some of the clinical experience. And part of the reason is because we do have a clinical course that you must take. And the clinical course, we view it as a jumping off area for your project or your thesis, your topic. And so if you don't have clinical experience or very little of it, you may have some difficulty thinking about, well, where is it do I want to do this clinical experience? And the clinical experience is not returning to working on a unit that you might have worked as an undergraduate. It would be a different kind of clinical experience. Again, it would be a clinical experience that would enhance your leadership skills and your networking and those kinds of things. So without having any clinical experience, that might be a little bit difficult. So I would encourage to work at least casual if you were going to come into the Masters of Nursing program. Any other questions?
Do you have any stats like Fred had with the funding for the MN program, like with current students now? What percentage or something that they have funded?
Oh, gee, no, I don't, because our numbers are so small. In terms of the monetary amount, that would be very similar to what Dr. Williams shared, because that's all through the School of Graduate Studies. So that would be very, very similar. In terms of how many of our current students are funded, because many of them work either part-time or full-time, they don't even apply for any funding. So, yeah, I don't have any of those stats for you in terms of who's funded. I know the people who have applied for a graduate assistantship have received them. Yes.
So I know how you said with the MS program, they have to go with faculty members to support them for the online program. Is that also true?
So the question relates to a supervisor. When you declare whether or not you want to do a project or a thesis, if you declare that you want to have a thesis, go down that route, then you would be meeting up with a supervisor. You'd be assigned a supervisor. For a project, there is no supervisor other than the individual who is teaching that particular course. Yeah. Yes?
How many students do you usually accept? Like, is there a cap? Like, with, I don't know, with competitive averages versus like minimum requirements?
So the question is, how many students do we normally accept? I'm going to go out on the limb, and I think that the Dean of the Graduate School of Studies would be really excited about this. We'd accept all students, no. Right now, what we've done is we're setting that cap roughly at about 12 students. And that's just because we have very small faculty, and we need to ensure that we can provide for your learning needs. So right now, we're looking at about 12. But you know, if we had 15 qualified applicants, I'm pretty sure the School of Graduate Studies would be looking at me saying, why aren't you accepting 15?
So with that in mind, is there a competitive average that we should be aiming to achieve?
This last year, our students generally came in with a GPA of about 3.2 or higher. When you're sitting at that 3.0, it becomes really a bit more difficult for students to get in. And certainly the problem as well with a 3.0 is that you may not be qualifying for some of those assistantships. Mhm.
When you're talking about the practice experience course, I just have this program sheet. That's where it says in year 1, summer practice experience. So that's somewhere out on site doing, like you said, it might be a leadership type of thing, but that's considered like a class?
So the question. The question deals with how does the clinical experience unfold. So it is a course, and there is a little bit of an online session. It's more of a seminar where you will interact with the professor who's facilitating that particular course. It's 48 hours of clinical experience, and you have to complete those 48 hours from May 1st until sometime in June. Don't quote me on that because I don't teach that course, and yeah, I think it's somewhere in June. You, the professional that you're working with, and the professor will negotiate what your schedule will look like. And of course, where you're doing that clinical experience needs to meet the course objectives. So when I'm saying that if you are working as an undergraduate or if you're an RN working on a medical surgical unit, to say, well, I'm going to do my clinical like as if I was a staff nurse on this unit, that's not going to meet the course objectives or the program objectives, and so you won't be allowed to do that. We would work with you and with perhaps the unit and say, well, how can we have this student work on this unit or get this learning experience on this unit, but in a different way, more of a leadership kind of role.
And with the blended,
Mm.
with the blended learning, so you said it's 80% online and 20%. Is the 20% that's in class, is that like a weekly thing? Or you said you come once at the start and once at the end, will you come for like a full week? Or so what I'm asking, I guess, is can you live somewhere other than Lethbridge, or would you have to leave?
Okay, the question is, with a blended approach, can you live elsewhere other than in Lethbridge? The short and sweet, yes, absolutely, you can live elsewhere. And we do have students that come from Calgary and from Edmonton, and we anticipate that as this program grows, that we're going to have students perhaps even across Canada. So yes, you certainly can live elsewhere. The 80% is online, as I've said, and it's asynchronous discussion by and large. Then after that, the 20%. You come face-to-face here at the U of L at the beginning of the term. And then after that, about 3/4 of the way through, what we do is we schedule generally 1 day for each course. And that's just really to accommodate the number of students and what we want to do within that day. So, for example, this fall, our full-time students take 2 courses per term. So on the Friday, November 18th, they're spending about 4 hours with the professor who's teaching the research methodology class. And then on the Saturday, they're going to be spending the day with me because I teach a nursing ethics course. And then after that, then they're gone. Historically, last year we had one student who was in Thailand for the face-to-face. Weren't really expecting her to fly back for that. And so she had to make arrangements to be able to engage face-to-face with us, and she did it through WebEx and through technology. And that works too. We have the technology. But it's the student's responsibility to make sure that all works. Yes?
The English proficiency, I've got some classmates who are from other countries. If they pass their English proficiency to get into this undergrad, is there a different level when they move for this, or?
The question deals with the English proficiency and if that is different at the undergraduate and graduate level. I wouldn't think that it's different. What do you think, Dr. Williams? Yeah, we both think that it's the same, but that would be a question for the School of Graduate Studies. No other questions? Well, thank you all very much for your time and your attention, and I'm hoping that I'm going to see all of your faces next fall. Thank you.